If they can't agree, a government-appointed arbitrator would decide the price. Well, joining us now from Singapore is our business reporter, Katie Silver. Katie, what is Google's opposition to this? Because it seems fair enough. If they want to use other people's content, they need to pay for it.
Yes, well, according to Google, they say that they are merely linking to other people's content and that they are, in that sense, they're just an aggregator of news. They say that this model would break their business model and that this idea of having to pay local publishers for content would break their business model and that it would set an unfair precedent. Now, this comes as Australia has been lodging a widespread campaign to rein in the power of what they call digital monopolies. So when the legislation was first announced back in December, I spoke to the head of Australia's consumer watchdog who was talking about why it was necessary. And he says that basically it comes as a result of an 18-month inquiry, and what that inquiry found was that for every $100 of digital advertising spend in Australia, $81 of that goes to Google and Facebook. Only $19 is left for independent publishers and news outlets. And they were trying to recorrect that. So as part of this inquiry, they were looking at whether or not or how big tech is affecting that digital advertising spend. Now, this is all the more pertinent at the moment, given the state that publishing finds itself in with COVID-19. So they were already struggling to attract enough funds when it came to online subscriptions. But COVID-19 has pushed that even further because digital marketing and digital media spend is down. And so news media, news outlets in Australia have been, and around the world indeed, have been really struggling more than ever. So that is what this legislation has been looking to correct. But as you say, Google says this is going to set an untenable precedent. Now, one senator responded to that by saying that it doesn't break Google's search model, instead, Ben, that it breaks their bank account.
So if Google does go ahead and stop its search function, I mean, what does that mean for people in Australia? That the page just won't load up?
Yeah, in summary, yes. So it's basically they said if this legislation comes through, they will walk. Google said that. And so what that means for them is that in the last few weeks since it was first announced, we've seen a campaign from Google where whenever you're in Australia, if you search on Google, you get a little yellow warning saying, basically informing them of the legislation and looking for them to rally on their behalf. They've launched a campaign today on Twitter, putting out a video explaining why they may have to walk and trying to generate interest and passion amongst Australian citizens to fight on their behalf. We've also seen Google's own property, YouTube, launch a similar campaign. And so what Google's opposition here is that it seems to be about such legislation would make it mandatory for them to pay, as well as increasing the bargaining power of these smaller news outlets. Around the world, we've seen, for instance, just even the last 12 hours, them sign a deal in France to pay publishers such as Le Monde newspaper and a number of different newspapers and the like. But the difference here seems to be they're organised or basically distributed on a case-by-case basis, whereas the Australian legislation, they say, would create this precedent that could be then used around the world to basically increase the bargaining power of news outlets when they speak to tech giants such as Google.
OK, Katie, I suppose it's worth remembering that there are many other search engines available, despite how ubiquitous Google is. Katie Silver there for us, our business reporter in Singapore.